Er sagt, fick mich, fick mich, fick mich. Du willst es doch nicht.
You're listening to Gothic Coffee. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. And today I want to tell you a story about a man named David. This man named David slayed a big old giant. And when he killed the big old giant, David was walking to this path and found a woman. And David married this woman. And they had a child. That child was Gabriel, that lives in Mass. And that since the child lived in Mass, the town weared all kinds of masks, because they didn't want to be found. Now, David had a wife and had a son named Gabriel, and they lived in Mass, where the town weared all kinds of masks because they was afraid. They was afraid because they thought they was ugly. And David said, "You are not ugly. Only you can make yourself ugly." So they kept on wearing masks, and David got really bored of looking at the masks, and so he took off and left and traveled around the city, but never forgot about his son named Gabriel. Gabriel was an angel. Gabriel had wings that when Gabriel was living in the town, they was afraid of Gabriel because Gabriel had big wings. Gabriel stand by God, but Gabriel always was trying to find the Father on earth that made him. And Gabriel could not find. Yet He is very close. He is very close, and he knows and he sees. You are listening to Gothic Coffee. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. It's always good to tell stories. And here is another story. There is a lady who woke out of bed because she heard a noise, a knocking on the door. Tap, tap, tap. So the lady got out of bed and went downstairs and opened up the door, and there was nobody. So the old lady went into the kitchen and got a glass of water, and she was drinking it. And she recognized the water was blood. And then she dumped the glass out real quick, and there was a knock on the door. Tap, tap, tap. So the old lady, because she was nervous, she walked really quick to the door and opened the door. There was nobody there. So the old lady stand in the middle of the room saying, "What is going on? Am I going insane? What is going on?" So there was a knock on the door. Tap, tap, tap. So the lady was kind of nervous, and she walked really slow, and she opened up the door, and there was a fairy. She looked at the fairy, and her eyes was wide open, and the fairy took a dagger and stabbed her in the eye. Now let me tell you another story. There was a man who was trying to get to work. He went outside, got into his car, and he was driving, and he was coming to a bridge, and halfway on the bridge the car stalled and stopped. He got out of the car, and all of a sudden the cockroaches, there was tons of cockroach, and he got eaten up by tons of cockroaches. And you're listening to Gothic Coffee. You're listening to Gothic Coffee, and we are telling a story. Storytelling. It's always good. So The old lady. There was this old lady who found a ring when she was working in the garden. And she cleaned this ring and she put it on her finger. Now, this lady worked at a restaurant, and a guy ordered soup, and she gave the guy some soup. The guy started eating the soup, and all of a sudden the whole blood in his body came out of his mouth onto the floor. His eyes dropped. His face started melting. Now the lady and everybody in the restaurant was really scared. Like, should we have this soup? But it was only the lady that had the ring of death. You're listening to Gothic Coffee.